Vav. We're in the Sicha Hadran on the Rambam from Tav Shim and Vav. We're learning Sivav.
What's the message? See if it's a message attached to it.
Okay.
Learn.
Yeah.
Does it say anything?
No.
It's
a test run for
Moshiach.
Ben Hamdasa. Okay, let's learn. Okay, a kitzur of what we learned the last few weeks here in the Sicha. The Rebbe is explaining the mitzvah of Yediyas Hashem. The Barbanel asks the question, how could you give a mitzvah to know Hashem if a mitzvah means that you believe there's a commander? So you already believe there's an existence of Hashem. So you need a mitzvah that you should believe in Hashem, that you already know that He exists. So the Rebbe explains, based on the Abarbanel, and the Rebbe takes the words of the Abarbanel and explains it in a very deep way, that there is the knowledge that we have of Hashem's existence before the mitzvah. What's that? That's the knowledge of the DNA, of the Yechidish Benefesh of the Yid that knows the very essence of Hashem. Regarding that, there's no description, there's no tayar, the Eibush is Pashat B'tachlis Apshitis. Okay, that's the essence of Hashem that a Yid knows of intuitively. Now comes the mitzvah to know Hashem al Piseichel, to know Hashem with His greatness. It's a different inyan. You knowing Hashem within a framework where you could define and explain. That's a whole new thing. That's where the mitzvah comes in. Okay, now let's continue. We learned last week a beautiful hara about Bechira. Not sure who was here last week. Yidiyah and Bechira, which was the limit of Rambam, or for Gimel Prakam the Shabbos. Yeah. Sifov, let's continue. Al Pizeh, based on what we learned here, Yuvan, Mashikasav Rambam, Shah, Malacha Dalit. We can understand what the Rambam says in Malacha Dalit as follows. One of the beautiful things about the Rebbe's Hadranim and the Rambam is that he takes the entire Torah Chassidus and more and puts it all into the words of the Rambam, simple words of the Rambam. So what does the Rambam say? Husha Navi Eimer, the Navi says, Vashem Elikim Emes, that Hashem is truth. Huluvade Emes, Ve'ein La'achar Emes Kamitase. He is truth and there's no other truth like Him. And for who Shahat Teira Imeres, this is also what the Torah says, Ein Noid Mulvade Cholo. So the Rambam, after he tells us about the truth of Hashem's existence, he adds a separate halacha. We know in the Rambam, whenever he adds a point and he puts it into a separate halacha, that means that it's a significant point for itself. We find this in the Navi, and furthermore, we find this in Torah. Move on. So seemingly, this addition of the Rambam is not understood. The existence, the true existence of Hashem, His bikva mikaydem alacha gimel apisechel. The Rambam explained this to us before, and he explains logically. And this is what the Rambam says there. The mikiv and shekalim and tzoim tzrichim loy. All creations are reliant on Hashem. V'hu baruch hu ein tzarech lahem. And He, Hashem, does not rely on anything. V'lo lechad mem, not to any kind of existence. Lefichach ein amitase ka'amitas echad mehem. Therefore, the truth of Hashem's existence doesn't compare to every other existence. That's what the Rambam explains before. Now, if the Rambam explains that when you have two types of existence, one existence is called emes, and one existence is not called emes. So the Rambam gave a logical explanation what this means. An existence that's not self-reliant, that's not independent, but it constantly needs a higher force to sustain it and to give it its very creation, especially according to the Alter Rebbe, which the Rebbe here will soon point out that the Rambam also held of this concept, and you see it in his words that Hashem creates the world every single moment. So what kind of an existence is it? It doesn't exist intrinsically if it needs constantly Hashem to create it. Mashiach and Hashem's existence. He exists on his own. Oh, that's real existence. So the Rambam explained this to us logically. If so, why is the Rambam adding? And he's adding in a new halacha that you find this in Navi as well, and you find this in Torah as well. Why is it necessary? The answer for this is a very important point. Because the Eibishter cannot be defined with any definition at all. Lahamtzi, sanimtsoim, Hashem could create creation with such a nature, it should not be reliant on Hashem, and the world should exist independently, self-reliant. Hashem could do that. You're going to say, logically, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make. There's a Rebbe here who's going to quote, Al Pisechel, it doesn't make sense that an existence, a created existence, should exist without having to be created every single moment. So let's see what the Rebbe says here. So first of all, I don't remember now if the Rebbe brings it here or did the Rebbe bring it before, that the Lashon that the Rambam says in before, V'hu mamtzi kol nimtza. Right, the Eibishter is, they say, V'hamad ha'chachmas leidish yesha motzi rishon, and the Rambam says, V'hu mamtzi kol nimtza. So the Rebbe is medayik. Why does the Rambam say V'hu mamtzi? Present tense. Why not V'hu himtzi? The answer is because the Rambam is telling us what Alter Rebbe says, that the Eibishter is creating the world every single moment, mamtzi, every moment. But here, the Rambam is saying, in Halacha Gimel, I told you that this is true. Why? Because it's proven logically. Halacha Daled, the Rambam says, whatever logical proof I gave you for the Eibishter is no basis. And therefore, we have to have Husha Novi Eimeres, Husha Teira Eimeres. So the Rebbe explains, the Av Shal Pisechel Machrachas Liis Esavas Kolanim Tzahim Boif Nishiyat Tomet Tzrichem Elov, even though logically it must be. The creation happens every single moment. Kumuvur Betanya, the Inyan Bria Yesh Ma'ayin, Machayev, Shekayach Apayel Tzarech Liis Tomet Ban Nifala Havai Sema Ayin Liyesh, as Alter Rebbe explains, the difference between Yesh Miyesh and Yesh Ma'ayin. Yesh Ma'ayin is a kind of existence that cannot be. It's opposite of nature for it to be. So the fact that it is a novelty. The whole concept of its existence is a novelty. So that has to be sustained and recreated every single moment. This is the Alter Rebbe, when he speaks about this in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe goes so far to say that Mikan is here's the answer for the mistake of the Minim and Apokorsim, that they didn't believe in creation, and they say that Yesh Ma'ayin and Yesh Miyesh is the same thing. Just like when you create, you take a piece of wood and you make a nice piece of furniture out of it. Now you don't need craftsmen to continuously create it. So too, they said creation of the world is the same thing. Says the Alter Rebbe, they made a huge mistake. You can't compare Yesh Ma'ayin to Yesh Miyesh. Yesh Miyesh means it's an existence that the concept of this existence is already here. You're just changing the material, the form of it. But the concept of this type of existence is a thing already. Mashenkin, the Yesh of this world, before the world comes into existence, it's not only that it did not exist. The whole concept of this existence is a novelty. It doesn't make sense, B'chlal. So that's the Alter Rebbe's Hechrech al Piseichel, that it must be that David creates the world every moment. So the Rebbe explains, but Harei Mikivin Shuhu Yizbarach Hu Nimnanim Nois. But since the Eibishter is Nimnanim Nois, meaning that there's nothing impossible, Harei Hoichoch is the Seichel, Einem Shemrai is Klab, Beisoif Nois Abri. All of these proofs of Piseichel is not a proof how creation has to be. So therefore the Rambam adds and says, that's the source for the fact that the Eibishter creates the world every moment and it's unreliant on Hashem. It's because this is what it says in Navi and this is what it says in Teirah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yidayanu al Yidei Nevi'oi v'Yidei Teirasoi Shabriya Haisa B'Efen Kazeh Shekolanim Tzahim Tzrichim Lai. The Teirah notified us that this is the way it happened, that the Eibishter creates the world every single moment. Yeah?
There is a starting point in Parashas Bara Elokim. And you can't say because he creates the world every single moment, there's no beginning.
Yeah, of course there's a beginning, but it's not every moment. Okay, so you're taking what it says here is like, obvious, Pashut. The Rebbe is saying is very Pashut. B'Shas, the Rebbe spoke about this Indian, it was like earth-shattering. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya says with such strong terms that the world has to be created every single moment, and this is a fundamental Indian in Teres Achsidis. This is a fundamental point for Amun and Achdas Hashem. The Alter Rebbe, what is the Alter Rebbe saying with this? Alter Rebbe wants to explain why the existence of the world is not a contradiction to Achdas Hashem. Achdas Hashem means that Hashem is the very only existence. Now there's an existence of the world. The answer is this existence of the world doesn't really exist. It's being created every moment. And that, in essence, means that it's not that it exists. It's the power of Hashem that sustains it or creates it, but it doesn't really exist. So therefore, the existence of the world is not a contradiction to the fact that Hashem is the only existence. That's the word of the Alter Rebbe. So the Rebbe here comes and says that this word of the Alter Rebbe is lav dafke. Al pi seichel, it's lav dafke. Doesn't have to be. But pilot is this way because this is what the Torah tells us and this is what Navi tells us, but we don't know why. We don't have a hesber. It could be this way or it could be that way. But B'shas the Rebbe said this was a big mapeche. But says it could be this way or that way. It becomes a stirat achtas Hashem. The moment you say that the Eibusher doesn't create the world every single moment, so doesn't that mean in essence that the world is self-sufficient? And if so, how could you say Ened Mulvade Kipshute? Not so pashut this. Yeah. Okay, so
that's the reason for that second statement.
Which second statement?
About the Torah.
About?
MS.
What do you mean, MS?
Yeah, second halacha.
Navi Eimu Vushatayra MS.
Yeah, that's a different halacha. If you proved it already, now you're saying it again. You're saying that's what the Nevi'im are saying, that it comes to him alone. That's the statement you're making?
The point that I was saying that logically we're not forced to say this.
I'm
Yeah.
just asking about the flow in the Sif. We just said that there's a restatement
Yeah.
in a different halakha.
Correct.
What was said before, the restatement
Yeah.
that's now being said, it's telling us that the Torah says that it's always created.
Correct.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but look, the point here is that the place where the Alter Rebbe and Tanya is coming from and the place where the Rambam is coming from are literally two opposite directions. The Minim and Apokorsim, they said that we're living in a world and they saw reality of the world as existence. This is it. And when they thought about the Eibusher, they didn't think of the fact that the Eibusher is a kind of existence that does not bichlal exist in this definition. It's a different concept of existence. And therefore, they didn't understand what it means that this type of existence is a novelty. What do you mean it's a novelty? Could be it didn't exist before. I mean, when something didn't exist and now it exists, when you plant something and now it grows, now it exists. What does it mean that the concept of this existence didn't exist? It existed before, but Payala wasn't here yet for whatever reason. But you can't say that it's a new type of existence. They didn't understand what that means. They're living in the world and they're stuck in this framework of reality. And therefore they said, yeah, okay, but Payal, the world didn't exist before Hashem created it, but the concept of this existence is not a novelty. So it's just like a yesh miyesh. What's the concept of yesh miyesh? Before, this piece of furniture was not here, and now it is. Right? When you take the raw material and you make out of it a piece of furniture, so you could argue, I say, oh, it existed, but you just changed the form. But that form, did it exist before or not? The form did not exist before. So what's the difference in yesh miyesh and yesh mayin? The answer is that the wood and the furniture is the same type of existence. It's not that you take from wood and you make out of wood, all of a sudden it turns into metal. It's this type of existence is already there. Elamai, you form it. Al derech zeh, they said regarding the Eibusher, they were relating to the Eibusher in a very worldly way, that the Eibusher exists in this kind of definition. So on that, the Alter Rebbe said, no, they're making a big mistake. The Eibusher is a different type of existence, and the whole existence of our world is a novelty. Eshmayin. Here, the Rambam is coming from the exact opposite direction. The Rambam is saying that nimna nimnois, that by the Eibusher, yes, it's true that this world is a novelty. It's the whole type of existence is totally new. So if so, al pi seichel, this is something that has to be sustained every moment because it's hypachateva. But by the Eibusher is nimna nimnois. There's nothing impossible. And therefore, the world could be created and it could exist, and the Eibusher doesn't have to create it every single moment. So the Rambam is being mechazik the money even stronger, not less. Adarab, it's based on the union of nimna nimnois. Yeah. Okay, but when we get to Achtas Hashem, it's a little bit of a different sugya. Let's leave that for now. Let's go weiter. Okay, you see Zion. Learn one more sif here. From now we can add another point there. Shamash Kosav Rambam Hushan Novi Yemechulu. When the Rambam brings and says, this is what it says in Novi, it's not only a proof for what it said before, this itself is a halacha. As I mentioned before, it's in a separate halacha and halacha dalit. What's the point? For who the Inyan Zeh Gufa, this point there, should be oifim pu'ulas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this point, that when you speak about the Eibusher, all rules are null and void. Okay? And therefore, everything you're going to say about the Eibusher's existence Prove it. Only from one place, Torah. Who prat the mitzvah Yidiyas Hashem. This itself is part of the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. Understanding that there's nothing that you could say about the Eibishter that must be. This point itself, to know that the Eibishter exists above any definitions of seichel, is part of the fulfillment of the mitzvah. That's what the Rambam is bringing. The Rambam doesn't just bring facts that are not relevant to halacha. Everything the Rambam brings is negei la halacha. Okay, so what the Rebbe is saying over here is that now we have two components of the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. One is the things that we know about the Eibishter's greatness, al pi seichel. Al pi seichel, all kinds of descriptions of the Eibishter's greatness, al pi seichel. And then there's another mitzvah in Yidiyas Hashem to know that there's no rules that you can say about the Eibishter al pi seichel. You're going to have to prove everything al pi Torah. It's another part of the mitzvah. These 2 points is not atzmos, is not the point that we said before about the idea that there is before the mitzvah. So really, there's 3 different points here, okay, so that I will eventually say. Now, the Yeshleima, so based on this, we could say, the halacha zu, meramiz, harambam, gam, yikoidim, ba'halacha beis. We can already see this point hinted right in the beginning of the second halacha. The halacha, the Rambam there says, v'im yal aladas, shehu enu motzei. If it will come up into your thought to think that Hashem does not exist. That's the literal translation. So the question is, why would the Rambam, what's the Rambam adding it with? It seems repetitious. The Rambam started saying that David should say this is mamtzikol nimtza and mav shemaim va'aretz, everything heaven and earth he created and nothing else exists without him. And then the Rambam says, and if you're going to think that he doesn't exist, then nothing else could exist. It's literally a repetition of what it said before. What's the Rambam adding by this? Oh, here the Rebbe brings a diak of mamtzi that I mentioned before. So the Rebbe says as follows: B'halacha aleph kaisev v'hu mamtzi kol nimtza. Mamtzi in the present tense. Mamtzi loshen hoive shetomit gam la'achar sheishish me'bereishis hu mamtzi kol nimtza ma'in liyesh. That the Eibishter creates the world every moment, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. Now, what is this yal aladas? So here, the Rebbe's medayik, when it says yala, the Rambam, why does he use this expression? The Mefarshim, where he asks this question. Why does the Rambam use the expression of yala aladas? How about vim yachshev? If one may think, yala means that there'll be an aliyah in your thinking. You're going to think of the Eibishter in higher terms. That's what it means. You'll have a higher level of understanding from the Eibishter's behalf. Hashem create the world. He could create the world in such a that he's not a mamtzi. He's removed. He remains completely separated and removed from the existence of the world. Now, what's the idea that Eibishter creates the world every moment? He's invested, he's involved, he's present, he puts himself into creation. Right? That's how the Eibishter creates. That's the union of mamtzi. The Eibishter could create the world in such a that he's not a mamtzi. Ain't a mamtzi. So what the Rebbe is saying here is, don't learn the Rambam kipshutei that a person is going to think that who ain't a mamtzi, that Hashem doesn't exist. That's not what the Rambam is saying. Exists. Of course Hashem exists. Adarabah. Hashem is ain't a matzui. He's not a present existence in our type of existence. He's not a matzui as a mamtzi. This type of existence, he's not. But just the reality is, Shekain Allah b'Ritzoni Yisbarach. This is what Hashem decided. So the Rambam goes on to say, if you may say that this is the truth about the Eibishter, that he does not have to create the world every moment, really you would be right. But Hashem decided that it should not be this way. He wants to be a motzui. Hashem wanted to be a mamtzi. He wants to be involved in creation. That's what the Rambam is saying here.
That's what the Torah and the Navi says.
Right, because then later on in Halacha Dalet, he clarifies that that's what it says in Torah and Navi. Correct.
Otherwise, you could possibly say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's an Akudah there. Yeah. Okay. 22, 23. It's just the hardest over here. Okay, so let's, you want to see Hada 23? Okay, let's see Hada 23.
Okay.
Hada 22 is going back to a different Hadran that the Rebbe said, but let's stick to, okay, Hada 23. Based on this, we can understand what the Tzemach Tzedek says. Natak Leila, 17. The mitzvah ha'amunah, what is the amunah? Shehu Yisbarach Ram v'Nizgav l'mayla mayla mimadreges hachachma. To believe that Hashem exists above any definition, including chachma. That he's explaining, according to the Rambam, that this is the mitzvah. The question is, how does he say that this is a mitzvah according to the Rambam? That the knowledge of the mitzvah is to know that Hashem is related to creation or not related to creation. It seems that the Rambam is saying the mitzvah is to know that Hashem is related to creation. He creates everything. So how can the Tzemach Tzedek say that the mitzvah of knowing Hashem is to know that He's above creation? How could this be? That Hashem is exalted and higher and removed from creation. So the answer is, but based on what it says in the Sikha, there's 2 points. The Prat Zeba mitzvah, this detail, Shahu, Ram v'Nizgav, Kasav Rambam, Balacha Beis, Balacha Dalet. This point, Taken Alocha Al, the Rambam says, one aspect of the mitzvah is to know Hashem in relation, Chachmeh, and everything related to our creation. But then you also have to know, and this is part of the mitzvah, to know that Hashem is above all of this. Now, the fact that the Rambam begins with speaking about Hashem, created the world, related to creation. Why does the Rambam begin that way? If according to the Tzemach Tzedek, that's the main point of the Eibishter? No, the main point is the Eibishter exists higher than creation. It's the famous lashon that the Alter Rebbe says in Torah, Gilles Esther actually. The fact that you refer to the Eibishter as a Bashefer, created the world, that's not the way we refer to the Eibishter because the Eibishter is way beyond. So why, when the Rambam opens his Sefer, why wouldn't the Rambam open with the first point that the Eibishter is above everything? He doesn't relate to nothing. And then the second point, it's Tzimtzum. He came down to create. The Rambam starts the other way around. Why is this? Yeshleima, we can say as follows: Ki ha-mitzvah shegam ha'inyan deram v'nizgav yiboy from the leda yedi sichles. Come on, sivches. Okay, we're gonna have to wait. But the Rebbe explains it as sivches because the whole objective of the mitzvah is to believe taka the Eibishter is ram v'nizgav, removed higher, but that has to then come down into seichel. You should know this with the yedi sichles. And he starts with speaking about the Eibishter that's related to existence. Only after you know this about the Eibishter, from there you could come to understand that the Eibishter's existence is beyond our existence. If you just start with the fact that the Eibishter's existence is beyond our existence, okay, so there's no seichel aspect to that. Once you understand the shleimus of the Eibishter within creation, that itself leads you to realize that the Eibishter can't consist of this. So now, the fact that you know that Hashem is above creation comes from a logical place. Because you understood what the Eibishter is in relation to you, and then you realize from that that doesn't stop there. You must say that he's more than this. The Mamtzi is the level that's related to creation. But then from there you come to understand that the Eibishter must be above creation. And this is the objective. The objective is to believe that Hashem is above creation, but that this itself should be proven al piseichel. Why that is, the Rebbe will explain in Sivches why this is the shleimus of the mitzvah. To come to it, Yidiyas Ashlila Bo Dafke Lafre Yidiyas Achiv. B'chol ma sha'achiv u'naila yaser hafla the shlilas chiv zeh hafla naila yaser.
So that's the
First you start Yidiyas Achiv, and then from there you come to Yidiyas Ashlila. But the point is that the Shlila should be a Yidiyah Piseichel. If you're going to just start right away and saying, the Eibishter, we can't relate to him. From the Yidiyah Achiv, then you realize the Yidiyah Shlila. That's the Iker Mitzvah. Yeah, okay.